Hello, FITC. How's it going, guys? Awesome. So welcome. My name is Rami, and I'm here to talk to you about how we built a bot for FITC. So how many of you have watched this movie? A lot of hands are up. How many of you really wish that you had a companion like our famous actor here? A few people raise their hands. Well, we know how the movie ends. It's not particularly positive, but regardless, it's, like, at least in the beginning, when I was watching this movie, all I could think about was like, how do I build one of those for myself? So that's what we're going to be talking about today, how to build bots. So my name is Rami. I'm a technical evangelist, and my job is to actually work with developers, startups, help them build really cool stuff. My expertise is open source web technology, so if you've got any question about Node.js, Python, PHP, React, Angular, like Node.js, Azure, Edge, browsers, whatever, feel free to reach out to me. One of the best ways to reach out to me is through Twitter, but if you dislike Twitter, it's quite easy to guess my email, and if you really want it, I can point at it. It's that with @microsoft.com at the end. And a dot in between. So what you will learn today is basically what are bots. We're going to cover through some of the bots that are out there in the world. What are bots? Why now? Because bots are not something that is particularly new as a concept. I'll talk about what is conversation as a platform, how we built a bot for FITC, and if in case you haven't had a chance to play with it, all you got to do is go open your Facebook Messenger, search for FITC space bot, and you'll actually see it. We'll talk a little bit about the bot framework, which is the technology behind how we built this bot. And then lastly, I'll do a quick intro to cognitive services. So what are bots and why now? Essentially, a bot, in the way that we're talking, in the context that we're talking today, it's not a robot. It's not like this, perhaps like this generic AI thing. It's really about chatbots. That's what we're talking about today. So you might be wondering, well, where does chatbots come from? What was perhaps the first experience you might have had with chatbots? Now, for me, I might be dating myself here, but it's actually that little man over there who was probably the most annoying and useless interface to a software ever. It actually sort of prevented me from doing work. But really, that's not what we're trying to get. We're trying to create, instead, these chatbots that make it super easy for us to, book a haircut on Saturday. So I can just message someone, hey, I want a haircut. All right, and then with the bot, I'm able to actually book a haircut, get everything ready, all in the span of maybe 2 messages. No longer do I need to find a web app, find the how to actually book this thing online. Do I have to pick up the phone? Because I don't really want to talk to other humans. I prefer talking to machines. So here is a way that I could finally do that. That's not true, by the way. I do like talking to people, so if you want to go for ramen at Momofuku after. So there's a bunch of different types of bots that are out there right now. Here's a simple bot that just basically gives us the hourly forecast. It's just something that I could send it. Hey, give me the hourly forecast. It'll give me this nice little image. Hey, it's partly cloudy. Consider a hoodie. So bots, chatbots, you can build a whole bunch of them that can do many different things, and some of them can be extremely serious. So there's this great bot that was created by this 19-year-old in New York City, where essentially it basically has beaten 160,000 parking tickets simply by you messaging it. It gives you a simple advice, and you were able to actually contest your parking ticket, and as a result, not have to pay it. So there's a lot of really interesting things that are being built in bots. Some of it go beyond this. So an example that I have is this little bot that we created at Microsoft called Murphy. And it's interesting because it goes beyond just the very simple formulaic chatbot responses to actually more, how do we inject intelligence into this chatbot so that it's smart or it could do things that you might not expect. So here's an example. This is a screen cap right off my phone. It's using Skype. So if you open up Skype today and you search for Murphy, you'll get this bot. And here's what I sort of asked it to do. Murphy brings what-if scenarios to life. So what I said, I wanted to sort of see perhaps what if Justin Trudeau was looking, or maybe was Charlie Chaplin? What could I get out of that? So when I asked Murphy this question, it returned this. Looks real, right? Looks real. But, obviously I've always had this childhood dream of being Iron Man. So, I asked it, hey, what if I was Iron Man? So in this case, I never actually gave it my photo. It figured out that it's figured out some of my photos by going through the Bing image search. It also did the same thing for Iron Man, and it was fairly successful. But the next one is the one I actually like the best. So if you give it a smiley face, it will actually give you another picture. Obviously, I was very happy about this, so I gave it a smiley face. And it gave me this one, which I actually think is really cool. I don't know what you guys think. So it's not just simple formulaic bots that we're building. We're actually going way further than that now. We're sort of trying to approach, and it's going to take a long time, but to have this general conversational bot, this general intelligence that you're speaking to, that you can talk to it about any number of things and it will be able to figure out. So we actually also created this really, it actually turned out to be really popular, GIFs. It's a natural language chatbot. You can talk to it about just about anything. And we launched it in China, and there was over 20 million people who registered to use this, and on average, every single user was talking to this service about 60 times a month. And that's just the average. So you can think about that there was a ton of people that were talking way more than that, and a ton of people that were not talking to it at all. But it ended up becoming very popular, and at one point, it even sort of became a news anchor. So here's a video. I don't know if you guys can hear the audio here, but you might be able to understand this. I certainly don't, so I have to rely on the subtitles. But basically, they introduce a new news anchor to the site. Can we get audio? It's on. All right. Well, anyway, there's some background talking here, and basically this is a representation of Zhao Ice inside the TV show, and where it was actually answering the reporter's question about what the weather is going to be like. So you're seeing like these types of applications, these types of bots being built, and they're having huge impact, and we're eventually moving to different types of complexities within a chatbot. So if you're wondering, okay, are bots just hype? Because we've thought about bots before. It's not a new concept. There was, if you remember in the old days of IRC, you used to be able to have bots. So are they just hype? And why is now something where, like, potentially now if I wanted to build a bot startup, it would actually work? So there's a couple of things that are happening here. One is that mobile is the new scale. So what that means is if you look at the number of devices people have in the world, there's actually more folks holding an Android, an iPhone, or any other type of phone, smartphone, in the world than there are people that actually own laptops or devices, like typical desktop devices. So if you look at the number of devices that are out there, it's quite huge. And on these mobile platforms, if you look at the number of folks that have one of the big four messaging apps, that number today, well, as of the third quarter of 2015, has hit over 3 billion people. 3 billion people have a smartphone with one of these four messaging apps, the big four are basically WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Kik, I believe, and there's a whole bunch of other ones as well. But these big four, there's 3 billion people that have this. Now, the interesting thing is once you're building this messaging app or even this social network app within your phone, you have access to a bunch of really interesting things. One is an address book. So right off the bat, you can actually build a social network based off the contacts that you have in your phone. And also, you have a phone number that can act as a unique identifier. So if you ever had a WhatsApp account, you notice that you can take your WhatsApp account with you on different devices so long as it's the same phone number, you're able to sign in. The other thing that these phones have in general is the ability to take a picture or load up a picture from the phone. And finally, there's push notifications. So when you think about it, there's no reason why we can't now deliver a chatbot to billions of people. And that's actually what's happening. It's frankly one of the few opportunities in tech right now it's a new runtime that you could build your companies on, your startups on, new opportunities out there. once-in-a-decade opportunity. And if you think about the number of time that people are spending inside messaging app, it's astronomical. How many of you have one of the messaging apps as your sort of main app that you use on your phone? Does anyone use another app besides Facebook or WhatsApp or Messenger? Almost few people do. So there's an opportunity for us to actually build these chatbots and address a huge market right away. There's a lot of demand for these things, especially from larger companies now, and all companies, all sizes actually. It's very easy for you to update a chatbot. You no longer have to ask the user to download an update. It's very different from the app ecosystem model where you actually have to go to inside a store and download something. A chatbot resides within the existing app that you have. And it's not overly crowded at the moment. And everybody is typically looking to automate something. So if you can automate something with an app, perhaps you can also do it with a chatbot too. In terms of where we are in the hype cycle, I would say we're pretty much around there. Now, obviously, folks are going to start getting disappointed with what you can do with chatbots, but eventually we're going to reach this plateau of productivity where everybody's going to be using bots, and it's going to be working quite well. Now, to answer the question, is it here to stay? I actually think so. Messaging and social are the main experiences that people use on their phones for. All the big messaging apps have now some type of support for building chatbots. Conversational UI is very simple. It's very easy to understand. You just send a message, and that's it. And finally, we actually do have AI capabilities and machine learning capabilities that are now mainstream enough that folks that are building these chatbots can actually inject intelligence into their bot. And now we'll show you how we can do that today. So that leads us to this idea of conversations as a platform. So what we're thinking about now is this is now a platform that you can build things on top of. It's there to connect people, but you can also build these digital assistants as well, and think of Siri and Cortana, but also these bots as well. And essentially what we're trying to emphasize here is that it's a new way of thinking. Human language is the UI in this case. It's not buttons necessarily. It's not how people, it's not like graphics on the screen. It's just language. It's text. So when we're thinking about whether these new apps are basically how you think about the user experience of these new apps, it's completely different. The way you think about it is completely different. Bots are essentially becoming the new apps, and these digital assistants like Cortana and Siri, they're basically these meta apps. They are apps that talk to other apps. But regardless, intelligence, so some type of machine learning backing or some AI, is going to have to be infused into all of this to make it actually intelligent so that you don't get frustrated with your bot. So essentially, conversational UI plus intelligence are the differentiators of why bots are going to succeed today. And just remember, don't build a Clippy. So that's not what you want to do. So how do we build a bot for FITC? And also, we were looking for a way to troll Sean. So Rick, for those of you who don't know, Sean is the main director of the FITC conference. We built this bot with Rick. Rick is in the room. He's in the back. He's waving his hand. And it was an interesting way for us to solve a problem for FITC. So one of the things that FITC needs to do quite a bit is answer very basic questions. That's why there's a bunch of folks running around with name tags and T-shirts that you can ask questions to. We needed a bot that could help these folks answer these questions. And also, we wanted to do something fun. And so when you think of the range of bots that exist out there, you've got Murphy on this spectrum, but they basically go from fun to functional. Like the UPS bot basically gives you the tracking of your package. It might have occasionally send you an update saying, hey, your package is on this way, but at its most basic form, it's a functional app. It's not particularly fun. We actually wanted to put something in the middle, something fun and functional at the same time. So here's what it looks like when you run it inside an emulator. I'll cover this later. There's a slide that's missing here. Let me show you what the bot looks like today. So if you take a look at your Facebook messengers, you can do all of this today. Basically, just search for the FITC bot, and you can say hi, and it will tell you what it could do. It's a little slow in the beginning. This is a screen cap, though. Once it wakes up, it asks you, hey, well, I can answer a couple of questions, like what are some of the upcoming presentations, or maybe a frequently asked question, or give me cute cats. So here we're saying is once you ask it a question, there's a bot that's like a real robot that's going to go ask Sean, what the answer is. Actually, it's not true. It's powered off a series of question-answer pairs that we were feeding this intelligence API so that it could recognize no matter how you write where is the bathroom, whether you write where is the loo, for example, that it'll give you an answer. The other thing that we did was, hey, we said, you know what, like folks like cats, except for Sean for some reason. So we said, hey, Sean actually loves cats, so if you wanted to maybe reinforce this with Sean, send him a picture of a cat on Twitter. His name is Sean Pucknell. You can find him on Twitter. But we said, hey, you know what, like let's build something fun and actually have it show cats as well. So it's an API it's a bot that accomplishes a couple of things for FITC. I'll show you how we built it. And basically, it starts off with this Microsoft bot framework. So that's the technology behind this entire bot. And this bot framework is composed of 3 different things. The bot builder, a developer portal, and a bot directory. Now, by the way, all of this stuff is open source. So if you wanted to go and see the code and how this works, it's all up on GitHub. It's just github.com/Microsoft/botbuilder. You can see all the code and basically submit pull requests if you wanted to and help move the bot framework forward. So a typical bot might look like this. You might have some code that you need to write. This code is going to interact actually with the bot SDK. The bot builder SDK lets us create these dialogues, these conversations. So your code typically will go there. Once your code is ready, you actually want to connect it to this service that we provide called the bot connector service. What this does is it manages the state for all of the channels that are out there. So we support basically all of the channels that you see on the list over there. So things like Facebook Messenger, GroupMe, Kik, Skype, Slack, Twilio, even email. And essentially, when messages come from these platforms, so you don't actually have to write code to make your bot work with all of these. You just make it work with the bot builder SDK, and you let the bot connector service handle routing the message and giving you a standard message instead of you having to write special code for each channel. So with this framework, you can actually do a lot more than that. And then when you add these Microsoft Cognitive Services to it, you can also add these extra intelligence into your bot, things like natural language processing, speech recognition if you wanted your bot to support receiving a voice message, which you can do from Facebook, for example. So you be able to recognize a picture, what's in a picture, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So basically, your bot code, you can build this with C# or Node.js, but the bot code is the main logic of your bot. It's where you define the conversations that you want your bot to be able to do, the dialogues, and dialogues that basically are parts of this conversation. And you can host your bot code anywhere you want. You just need to give us the URL of basically your bot. So that's essentially what you're ending up doing here. And your bot can actually talk to a whole bunch of different services like Lewis and add more intelligence to it. But it doesn't have to. You can do whatever you want with your bot code. So once you've got your bot code, you can connect it to the connector service. You can select the channels that you want it to support, so whether you want Facebook or Slack or SMS. And once you've got all this set up, you can actually have the messages be routed to your bot code. So one of the neat things that we've done is we've also had an emulator, so you can actually run a lot of this stuff directly on your desktop. You don't need to put it up on Facebook right away. You can just test things directly on your website, see what type of messages you're getting from the bot framework, and really build your bot directly, locally on your machine. So actually, that's what we'll use when I go through the FITC code that we have. So before I do that, I need to explain how you actually build these conversations. How do you build your bot code? So basically, you have this concept of a dialogue. A dialogue is like a back and forth. So when I ask it, for example, or like basically a very simple question like, hey, where is the bathroom? Hey, the bathroom is here. That's a dialogue. It has a beginning and an end. Okay, like the beginning might have been my question, the end is the answer. That's it. There's nothing else going on. But there's other types of dialogues that might have more complex conversation structures, or even better, you might go into one dialogue, and then once you've figured out what you want to keep talking about in more detail, you can branch off to another dialogue. So the idea here is we're going to represent our conversation, the pieces of conversations that we want to support as a dialogue object that you can reuse as well, and that you can branch off from. So essentially, we're going to create this conversational tree. We might start off with this beginning dialogue saying, hey, well, how can I help you? and then depending on what the answer is, it will go into another dialogue and then another dialogue, and further on, creating this tree of basically dialogues that form a conversation. And there's different types of dialogues that you might have. Perhaps you want to have a prompt in your dialogue. So, hey, I need a number from you. If the user doesn't give you a number, you ideally want it to ask again. So you can we actually have built-in prompts that you can inject into your dialogue so that you can ask for numbers, choices, yes, no, a whole bunch of other things as well. One of the other cool things that we could do with the bot builder is we can also have attachments that are sent in. So you can actually send attachments directly from the messaging app, whether it's an image or a voice message or anything. If you look on the Facebook Messenger app and you press the plus button, you can see there's many different types of things that you can send over, a GIF, even your location, where you are at the moment. So the bot builder has support for all of these things, and it could send you these rich attachments as well. You can send an image over. That's what Murphy was doing when I showed you Murphy earlier. It was sending me an image directly inside Skype. That's what our bot for FITC is doing when it sends you a cute cat. So the idea here is that you can actually also build these rich cards that you send to the user in the messaging app. So we have this idea of a hero or a thumbnail card. So this is like one big image or a thumbnail, or many different little thumbnails of an image. So you can send those over. You can send things like a receipt, for example. So if you were building a bot for a hotel and the user is asking you for the receipt, you can send an actual receipt object, especially with special support inside Facebook Messenger. And you can even send these carousal cards that show multiple cards next to each other, so you can scroll through and choose what you want to talk more about, or what you want the bot to give you more information about. So there, that example there with the Westin St. Francis, it actually has multiple cards there and a carousel to show you the types of rooms that you maybe want to book. So to get your bot project started, it's quite simple. I am going to show you how to do it with Node.js, and in Node.js is really easy. You just need to create a package.json file and do an npm install for the bot builder package, and that's it. There's no other setup required. You can use any of the tools that you like, any editor, any basically whatever tools that you prefer for Node.js, and that's how you get started, basically. Once you've got that code running, you can actually then deploy it to any server and give us the URL for your bot code, and we'll know how to talk to it. So once you actually have this set up, the way that you do start your code is you actually need to create a connector. In our case, we'll start off with the console connector. So what that means is that you can talk to your bot directly through the console without using an emulator or something else. Once you have that bot, you want to pass in the connector that you're giving it, and then you pass in the logic for your bot by creating these dialog objects. Once the dialog objects are ready and you're going into this waterfall that's part of the conversation, you can communicate with the user using the session object to send messages or cards and stuff like that. So if you look at our very simple code here, all I've got here is basically my require for the bot builder. I'm creating this console connector so that I can talk to it through the console. I create my universal bot, I give it that connector object, and my first dialog object, all it does is it basically sends a hello bot. So if you take this code and run it on your local machine after you npm install the bot builder, it should say hello world anytime that you message it with the console. So why don't we dive into how we built the FITC bot in particular. Now, the nice thing is that we've open sourced all the code already, so if you wanted to check it out, it's up on github.com/sayar/FITC bot. And it does a bunch of things. So why don't I actually just jump into the code right here. So I've got my Visual Studio Code here open. Here's my app.js file. Here you'll notice I've got my bot builder. What I'm doing here is I'm creating a very simple RESTify server because I need to basically be able to take API calls from the bot connector service. So I do that. So very simply, I create a RESTify server. I tell it to listen. And then I create my chat connector. Here, instead of using the console connector, I'm going to use the proper chat connector. So this is what allows us to receive messages from Facebook and stuff like that. And then I'm going to create a universal bot that takes this connector object inside it. And I'm going to ask my RESTify server to respond to any messages that the connector service sends it to API/messages to the connector of the universal bot. So that's pretty much the setup that I need to do to start listening to messages. And what I've done here is I've actually already installed the emulator. So if I go ahead and run this, and I tell it to connect, the emulator to connect directly to the chatbot, it will actually work. So if I go ahead and go into my folder here of this repo, and I do an npm start, and I open, here is my bot framework emulator. There we go. Okay. I can actually tell it to connect directly to my local host where this server is running, connect, and I can actually start connecting and talking to it. So if I say hi, this is the same bot that you saw earlier in a demo with Facebook Messenger. The difference with the emulator is that you don't get the nice cards necessarily that you would in Facebook. So here I would actually have to say, hey, number 3, give me a cute cat, and then it will send me a cat image from Sean. So the nice thing is with the emulator, I can actually see what's happening here. So here I have my card here. I'm giving it a URL to get where the image from. You can see the type of messages that are sent over, the conversation IDs, stuff like that. So you can pretty much debug your entire bot directly from your local machine. Now, my bot, in this case, you'll notice, has a bunch of different dialogues. It has this home dialogue that asks it, hey, what do you want? Do you want a cute cat? Or do you want to ask a question or an FAQ question? And then from there, I actually dive into different types of dialogues. Now, one of the dialogues that I find interesting is the cats dialogue, because it's fairly simple. So what I'm doing here is, once I get into my home dialogue, this is what the object looks like. It's basically an array of functions. It'll first start off with this question, and it says, hey, I can answer these questions. Give me. It prompts for a choice. So when I went ahead and I selected 3, that was giving it the cute cats as my choice. And then I checked to see, hey, did I get a cute cat as my response result? And from there, I tell it to begin another dialogue, which is the cats dialogue. So if I jump into my cats dialogue, you'll see I'm going to do roughly the same thing here. I only have one function, though, because this conversation is very simple. It's just going to return a cat. And what I'm going to do is, hey, you want cats? I've got cats. Send a typing message. That's the 3 dots that you saw that I'm basically typing in the answer. And then from there, I'm just going to generate a random number. And then I'm going to create this hero card for this session, give it a title, cute cats, give it a subtitle saying Sean loves cats, which is not true, but it's funny. And then I'm going to create a card image using the cat API. So I'm going to get an image of a random cat from the cat API, and I'm going to return this image as an attachment of my message and send this message over. And once this is done, I'm just going to replace my current dialogue with the home dialogue, which is represented by the /URL, and I go back to my home dialogue. And then I will restart basically from the top here. So that's exactly what's happening to get to this very crazy cat here. If I go ahead and ask it for another cat, hey, it will send me another cat. And basically, you could do a lot more than that. There's the presentations functionality as well that you can tell you, hey, what's up next, what's on now, find me a speaker. So if I say, hey, what is the name of the speaker you're looking for, and I'm looking for myself, uh-oh, there's something wrong. Perhaps it couldn't find me anymore for some reason. So once we've got that running, the other functions are going to ping an API that's sitting on FITC's website. So this is a custom API that we built on the other end to basically be able to answer some of these queries. But at its most basic function, we're just hopping between different dialogues and either doing an API call to get more information or to get the picture of a cat, and then returning that to basically our bot code here. So once I've got a very simple bot, all I got to do to actually make it work is register it in the bot framework service. So this basically tells the bot connector, hey, I have a bot. Here's where's the code. Where's the bot code that I wrote. And you could put your bot code anywhere you want, whether it's on Heroku, Azure, AWS, whatever, as long as we can ask it for what to say next. So it needs to have a public API. Once you've got that set up, you can configure the channels that you want. So right off the bat, Skype and we even have a web channel. They're pre-configured. So your web channel lets you actually embed a chat window into any website and be able to talk to the bot. So you can add your bot to your website, and it doesn't have to you don't have to talk to it through a messaging app. Perhaps something that you might want to do afterwards is actually publish the bot in this public directory of bot framework bots, so you can see all the different types of bots that have been built before. Some of the most featured and popular ones are the Hipmunk bot, the Skyscanner bot, StubHub. So these are all bots that are built with the bot framework, and it's, there's something that you could do there. Now, sending pictures of a cat, that's perhaps a little easy. What we wanted to do actually as well is inject a little bit more intelligence into this bot. We wanted it to be able to answer questions that we already, the answers are fairly obvious, they don't change, it's not like a dynamic answer, it's fairly static. So when everybody asks, where's the bathroom, no matter how you ask that, whether you say, where's the loo or whatever, the answer is the same. So we wanted to be able to recognize these questions to send this answer. So what we're going to use is this other set of APIs that are pre-built machine learning models that basically answer various things. And they're called the cognitive services. If you're wondering, well, why should I use these cognitive services? What's so special about them? They're very easy to use. They're just simple REST APIs. You can use them from any platform at all, whether it's iOS, Android, Windows, or in any language, Python, Node.js, it doesn't matter. And they've been tested. So these were machine learning APIs that were built by experts at Microsoft, so at Microsoft Research, at Bing, at the Azure Machine Learning team, and they're pretty solid. So some of the stuff that you have in there in the cognitive services are things like the language understanding intelligence service. This is a way for you to understand what a user means by a message, so what his intent is. So, and it's able to recognize things like read me the headlines or pause for 5 minutes. And it has a bunch of pre-built models as well that recognize times, a location, a name, things like that. And the nice thing is that once you've got this model working, you can actually ask the user, instead of giving it a choice, whether it's, I want the cute cats button, I can actually tell it to type in something, and it will recognize what the message the user sent over. And there's other APIs as well, like a vision API. So if I get an image from a user, I can analyze it to see what's inside. I can generate images as well, generate thumbnails. There's also the face API. So what I could do is I could send a picture of myself, and it will basically detect if there's a face inside. It'll even verify if two pictures are the same person. It will group faces together, and it could do a whole bunch of really other interesting things. The most exciting one, I think, in my opinion, is this emotion API. It's actually a lot of fun, and basically what it lets you do is recognize what emotion your user has. So if someone is asking you, if you can create a bot that asks the user, hey, how are you feeling today? And if the user replies with a picture of a selfie, basically, you can figure that out quite easily. Now, the thing that we ended up using for our bot in particular is this API called the Q&A Maker API. And basically, if you give it a list of questions and answers, it will train a model to be able to recognize various questions based off the content of that question and also perhaps the answer as well, and be able to give you that answer that you're looking for. So that's what we ended up using. And to show you how simple it is to query this API, we have a little FAQ dialog here. What it does is it prompts, hey, type in your question, and then we say we're going to go bug Sean. But really what we're doing here is not bugging Sean at all. We're doing a request to this knowledge-based API. The host here is basically the URL for the API for the Q&A Maker API. So I'm creating this request object, and then I give it a body that has the question, which is whatever the user wrote into the message. As a message, and then whatever answer I get back, I just send it back to the Q&A maker, to the user in the bot framework. So if I show you what that looks like, I go ahead and here I press FAQ. Okay, type your question. I'll go bug Sean for the answer. Where is the bathroom? So here it's actually thinking because it's doing an API call. By the way, this is going through my cell phone, so hopefully my connection didn't break on my cell phone. And then eventually we'll get an answer that basically will give us the answer for where is the bathroom. And if I don't get it here, it's because my internet is really slow. Ooh. Yeah, we timed out because it's too slow. or something like that. I'm not sure what happened there. If you want to see what that looks like, though, we do it at the beginning here of this video. And you can actually go do it on your phones if you wanted to try it out. Internet is a little slow up here on the podium. So that leads us to sort of, we've sort of accomplished our objectives here. We created this very simple question-answer mechanism, and we're also doing some fun stuff like sending cats. So what really makes a good bot? Like, what makes a bot great? That's what we wanted to think about when we were building this. One, it's not really how smart they are. It doesn't actually matter if they're very, very intelligent. You saw with the Murphy bot, it was pretty funny. And it was really interesting anyways. There is intelligence there, but not intelligence in the way that you would think. It's not like the Zhao Ice bot, where it's basically, trying to have a conversation with you. It's just, this very simple thing. And it's not how much natural language that the bot has. So if you look at our FITC bot, it actually accomplishes a whole bunch of stuff without ever necessarily asking the user to type in a message and us having to understand the message that they typed in. We're most of the time just asking the user yes or no questions with a couple of choices that they can just click on. So if you try it in your Facebook Messenger, you'll see it's just yes, no, you click on the button, and that's it. And it's not whether we use voice. We don't actually have to use voice in any of these apps. Honestly, what makes a bot great is whether it solves the user's needs in the quickest and easiest way compared to other options. If it was easier for me to open up a FITC app on my phone, go to the FAQ page, and then scroll down to see all the questions, to find the answer to the question I'm looking for, that's not as easy as just asking a bot, hey, where is the bathroom? And that's what we accomplished here. It's all about the user experience. Just like the user experience on an app is really important, or on a website, it's the same thing here. It's all about the user experience in the bot. One of the important things that we need to think about as well is when we're building these things, we need to have an answer for how it reacts in a crisis. So does it provide specific answers that are leading to something else? Does it confirm its actions? So when you're asking the bot to book you a flight, does it reconfirm the details of your flight? Is it accessible and inclusive? Does it allow for human interruption? Because I don't know about you, when I have a conversation with a human, it's never in a perfect sequential manner. It's perhaps interruptions and people cutting the other people's speech off, and there's a whole bunch of things that happen in real life. You also have to anticipate that, even in the bot world. You're never going to have a perfect user in your chatbot. I could have interrupted my bot at any moment to say, hey, what's going on? So you can design for humans, not yourself. That's what you have to think about. And lastly, when you think about how you built your bot, did you actually map out all the possible things that could happen? And most of the time, the answer is no, and you'll need a bigger whiteboard to do that. A couple of problems that you might actually encounter when you're building these things is having the mysterious bot. So this is a bot that doesn't actually answer your question besides saying, hey, how can I help you today? You give it a bunch of questions. You say, hello, why aren't you answering me? It's this mysterious bot. This could happen, and this is based off like your bot being able to understand what's going on. You might have a stubborn bot, so it will keep asking you the same question over and over and over again because it doesn't understand that you're telling it to stop. You might have the bot that can't forget, so you give it a detail, and then it's always stuck on that detail because it never actually went backwards. And when you said, hey, I don't want to go to Italy anymore, I want to go to Las Vegas, it never went back and fixed that. Of course, you might also have the clueless bot. So this is a bot where, hey, if I ask it for help, it thinks help is the answer to its question, and it starts including that, thank you for using the code help, and have a good day. It just doesn't make any sense. So basically, I'd like to end on some design principles for bots, and they're based off of our CEO's artificial intelligence bot design principles, but frankly, they can also, artificial intelligence design principles, but they can frankly be used for bots here. It's the same ideas. Your bot should be designed to actually assist humanity, do something interesting, to do something that's useful for the world and not just replace a person. Bots have to be transparent. They should tell you what they're doing, what they're thinking, what information they've collected. They should give you an opportunity to delete the information that they've taken from you. Through your answers, you should be able to actually have that ability to get privacy from these bots and have them delete the information they've collected. They should maximize efficiencies without making people bots themselves. You don't want to have to constantly give it precise answers. You're just becoming a robot yourself at that point. They should be more human than that. And lastly, they should have some type of accountability so that a human can go undo a potentially wrong wrong action that a bot took place, that the bot did because it was following this very basic algorithm that might not account for all the different exceptions that exist in the world. So if there's anything that you should remember from this is the best bots make you type less and not more. Essentially, if we found that when we were building these bots, the less typing that you did, the less potential for error there was, the less need to redo, reprompt, and re-get the questions, re-get a message from a user. That's frankly the best way to build a bot, to make it type less and type only when it needs to, and not constantly have try to accomplish very fancy natural language processing by always asking it for text. And that's pretty much all I wanted to talk to you about today. Thank you very much.